Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Lighthouse. Lighthouse is our way of bringing God's light into your home. If you're new here, welcome. Hi, my name is Christina, and together with my co-host Mark, we will be bringing to you today's episode. Hi Mark.
Hey Christina, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I was just thinking, is this your first time on camera?
Yes, yes it is.
It's very strange with all the setup, and the viewers obviously can't see what we can see, but
Yeah, it's different, but it's good different. I'm excited to be here.
yeah, me too. And today we'll have Abuna Shanuti with us talking about Not of This World. And I was just thinking about the topic. I think it's very relevant for today. Pope Shenouda has that beautiful poem called Stranger, and it just reminds us of that we're foreigners in this world. And I just think it's so relevant in today's world. But what do you think about that?
I think, yeah, it is very relevant, like you said, and there's a lot of challenges that we go through as youth daily and, throughout your life. So, yeah, I'm actually looking forward to hearing what Father Shanuti has to say.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to hear him. Before we cross over to Abuna Shanuti, we're going to cross over to a hymn. This hymn was produced by our youth here in Sydney. We hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you on the other side.
Have mercy, have mercy, have mercy on us, O God, our Father. Have mercy, have mercy. Have mercy on us, O God, our Savior. Have mercy, have mercy, have mercy on us, O God, and have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed those lovely hymns by our very own youth here in Sydney. We have a very special guest today, Father Shanuti from St. Mary's and St. Mina's Church in Bexley. He will be talking to us about Not of This World. So over to you, Father Shanuti.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to this beautiful service. And I'm very honored to be here with you guys. And when we talk about Not of This World, actually that's one of the things I was thinking about recently. And basically the way I look at it is our life will completely change, will completely be different if we accept that fact, the fact that we are not from this world. And I think this is the struggle that we face at the moment, is we're trying to live in a place that we don't fit in. And we struggle very hard to fit in, but we can't. And then we are not living a very joyful life that God has intended for us. And this is very clear because it is a fact. When I say it's a fact according to the Bible teaching and to the words of our Lord Jesus Christ himself. And you will find that in Gospel of St. John chapter 17, when he was praying to the Father, he was saying, "They are not of this world, as I am not of this world." So our Lord Jesus Christ himself stated that fact, that we are not of this world because he is not of this world and we are his followers. And he said it a number of times. You find the Gospel of St. John talks a lot about this concept, not of this world. Again, when he was talking to the people, he was telling them, you think the world will love you, the world wouldn't love you because you're out of this world. You're not of this world. And I chose you out of this world. So don't expect the world is going to treat you nicely and be accepting of you because you are not of this world. And he even went on to say, the world will hate you because they hated me first. And you think you're better than me? A servant is not greater than his master. Okay? So our Lord Jesus Christ was paving the way for the people to understand that it's okay to feel this way. And this is, especially as youth in this society, we need to accept that fact. It's okay to feel different. It's okay to feel that you don't belong in this world. It's actually it's a healthy spiritual feeling to have. Because if you feel comfortable in this world, if you feel that you're blending in very well and you're fitting in very well, and you know, I dress like the world, I talk like the world, I celebrate like the world, I do everything like the world, then actually that will be an alarm bell there for my spiritual life. People think it's good, but it's not good for my spiritual life, because that means I'm starting to look like the world, not look like Christ, which this is what we call to be like Christ, to imitate Christ, you know, have Christ's image, you know, Christ-like. We always talk about Christ-like, Christ-like. So this is a very important concept to understand from the very beginning, that it is natural as a Christian to feel that way. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of us try to fit in. And today God is telling us, stop trying to fit in. Because you're not going to fit in. If you want to be a true Christian, you're not going to fit in. If you want to fit in, you have to compromise, basically. This is the summary of the whole issue. It's like similar someone who's trying to, you know, get sort of a piece of clothes that's like 2 sizes smaller than his normal or her normal size. They're not going to fit in. Even if they try very hard, it'll be very uncomfortable. It'll be very uncomfortable. This is what we do sometimes. We try to fit in a place that is not ours. Okay, so usually the youth struggle with that one, especially people who are working and they're interacting with people on an everyday basis. They can't get the right balance. Okay, but we need to understand, as Christians, we can have the right balance, because we are not of the world, but God has called us to be in the world. People think, okay, the best solution is, you know, I'll just go to the monastery and stay in my own cell and that's it. You know, no. God actually did not call everyone, only very limited, selected people to do that. But for the rest of us, actually, we have an obligation to be in the world. Because who's going to light the world? He said, you are the light of the world. Who's going to give flavor to the world? We are the salt of the earth. So we are actually called to be in the world, to light to the world, and to give flavor to the world, but at the same time, not be of the world. So it could be sometimes difficult for people to understand that. Probably to simplify, another example would be like an ambassador of a particular country. Say we have the ambassador of America in Australia, for example. Okay, that ambassador is actually not from Australia, but that ambassador lives in Australia, lives with his family in Australia for a certain period. But during that time, that person is actually still American. He's got American citizenship. He will never get the Australian citizenship, but he lives in Australia and he deals with Australians and he deals with everything. But to him, this is not his home. Even though he's in Australia, but within the embassy, he's like in America. Okay? So for us, it's the same. For us, we in this world, but inside this world, we are in the heavenly. Our home is heaven. This is how we need to look at it. That's a general sort of overview way. Okay? But as youth, I would like to hear from you guys. How do you feel? Because I'm old, you know, I may not relate to that, even though I can go back to my life before priesthood and I was working in companies and it was bad, but I'm sure nowadays it's much worse than, 10 years ago or something. And I'm sure you can face or you can feel the dilemma sometimes or the challenges that you as youth face.
Abuna, I'd actually like to ask, what is a good way to remind ourselves constantly that we are not of this world, and this world, like life on this world, is short, and it's really eternity that we should be, preparing for? What's a good way to?
Good question. This is actually the key question, because we have to keep ourselves always reminded of that fact. The reason why we don't go the right way is because we forget that. Mm-hmm. Why we do that is because we're always listening too much to what the world has to say. And this is a big problem nowadays. It's becoming a more of a serious issue, is because we're bombarded every day with worldly things. And especially now the social media and the news constantly bombarding us with worldly things. So what happens, we tend to forget that we're not of this world. We get really so into what's happening around us, forgetting that this is not our place. Okay? It's like someone, for example, again, going back to the ambassador question, example, analogy, the ambassador is so bogged down into what's happening in Australia, he forgets his home country, America. Okay? He should be always listening to the news of what's happening in America. Always never lose connection with America, because that's his home country. Same thing for us here. We always listen to the world. So over time, our ears, our eyes will get used to what's normal here, becomes normal. And we listen too much to what people have to say, and we tend to make them dictate what is right and what's wrong. And this is a big disaster, because like nowadays especially, there's a lot of wrong things that's going around the world. You know, all the many things became acceptable when they're actually not acceptable at all. And people make the wrong things right and the right things wrong, and everything's upside down. Okay? And if you dare to call out something that's wrong because it's wrong, you'll be straight away accused of being intolerant, not inclusive, and you'll be persecuted, even though you're just stating the obvious. But because people are so listening so much about what the world has to say, they forgot, or they stopped listening to what God has to say. So to answer your question, we need to listen more to God, what He has to say, rather than what the people have to say. And this only comes by reading our Bible. I know it sounds very simple, but it comes down to really understanding what God has to say. How are we going to know what God has to tell us if we don't read His Word? Okay? By reading the Bible regularly, we'll understand who God is, we'll understand how He thinks, and we'll understand His will for us. And that will be a big contrast to what the world is telling us. Rather than being led and sort of base our values and beliefs based on what the world is telling us. No, this is not where we get our source of belief and values from. We get it from God, what He has to say in the Bible. Okay? And this will be our standard. Because nowadays, everyone has their own different standard now. There's no reference. As a Christian, my reference is the Bible. My reference is God's teaching. My reference is what the church has to tell me. This is my reference. If I want to know what's right and what's wrong, this is where I go to. But nowadays, people go to different things. People ask each other. People say, "Okay, I feel this way. What's wrong with that?" People go with their own instincts, with their own feelings, with their own desires, and they forget that this is not how we should be, running our life. It doesn't work like that. There has to be a reference, and that reference has to be a fixed reference. Does not change. In our society, what's acceptable now, 10 years ago, wasn't acceptable. You don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. So society's standards, our values actually fluctuate. They're not stable. But God does not change. The Bible says, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change. And that's why we need a fixed reference. So I can check what am I doing is correct or not. And that's why I'm not of this world, because the world changes. But as a Christian, I'm not of this world, because God doesn't change. That's in a nutshell. Okay.
And just off that as well, like how do we stay focused? How do we stay vigilant and born? It's a two-part question. How do we stay vigilant? You talked about just being bombarded all the time by the pressures of the world. And I'd love to hear about how do we deal with the consequences of being not of this world, because often that can mean that we have to sacrifice quite a lot.
Definitely. And St. Paul says a nice verse which we all know. He said, "Do not be conformed to this world." He said that in Romans. Do not be conformed to this world, but he said what? But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So the message to us is we cannot be conformed to the world. We cannot be part of the world. We have to be transformed by this. This has starts here. So it's a decision by the mind to say, no, I'm not going to be conformed. I'm not part of this world. And in making that decision, I'll be able to know God's will. That's the rest of the verse. So you can know God's will, perfect will, and what He wants you to do. Part of that, I need to count the cost. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Counting the cost. Yeah. It doesn't come cheaply. It's counting the cost. And that's why our Lord Jesus Christ made it very clear. He said, if you want to follow me, what should you do? Carry your cross. Follow me. This is a cost. Before you do anything, there's a cost. There's a price we need to pay. And this is what you're referring to, I believe. The costs or the consequences of not being conformed. And the consequences are many. And they take different, but it could be something simple as people laughing, making fun of you. Okay? Usually happens with little kids at school, for example. And they make fun of them or because they're doing something different. You know, when it comes to stage when you, for example, at uni, you know, I had someone told me the story. She was at uni, and she was walking normally and doing nothing special, and then she was just wearing a cross. That's all she was doing, wearing a cross. And one of our youth, one of our Coptic youth, and she just got, two girls stopped her, and they started telling her, why are you wearing a cross? Why are you doing this? They were actually attacking her for wearing a cross. Tell her, how do you know that God exists? What's this you believe in? And they were doing philosophy or something like that, and they got her a book out saying, you know, this is the theory, this is what you believe in, this is wrong, how do you know God exists? We'll prove you that God doesn't exist. Out of nowhere, they just attacked her just for wearing a cross. In Australia, in Sydney. It's supposed to be free country, yeah? Freedom of everything, except when you hold fast to belief, Christian belief. That's when you get attacked the most. And I'm sure we saw the same thing at the time of the voting for the same-sex marriage. You know, we got videos from people that was in Sydney Uni, I remember, a student standing up to say it's okay to say no, to vote no. And he got attacked and he got physically hit by people just for saying his opinion. Why? Because the devil wants us to conform. He wants to silence the truth. Okay? So this is the consequences. I actually saw that video myself. I really admired the youth. Okay? He was being kicked physically. And no one did anything. No one protected him. And he kept on going. He kept on defending what is right. This is a consequence you'll pay for. At work, for example, when you start working, consequence could be you may not end up getting that promotion. Other people could be promoted before you. Or because, you know, they're very inclusive. They're very open-minded. You know, they're very tolerant. Not like the Christians who say this is wrong and this is right. We come across as intolerant, you know, not open-minded, strict, judgmental. That's what they call us. Why? Because we don't want to be conformed to this world. Okay? The consequences later on could be even monetary losses. You know, you want to do the right thing, you're not cheating, so you're going to lose money. You know, simple thing as, you know, not cheating on your tax returns. You know, many people do that. As a Christian, I'm different. I am not of this world. I don't do that. Okay? I might lose something. If I have a business, I might be faithful in the business. I'll end up losing something. Many examples. But at the end of the day, I need to do this expecting there's going to be consequences and be joyful when that happens. Because if that happens, that means I'm actually really standing out. We're trying to fit in, but we should actually try to stand out rather than fit in, stand out. And that's our goal, that's our calling, is to be a light to the world, to shine. That means standing out. Okay, not to fit in and sort of go with the flow.
In the last couple of minutes, Abuna, you talk about the consequences. My mind straight away goes to, what about the rewards, like the outcomes for giving up something and sacrificing?
The rewards, if I'm really doing it genuinely and I actually understand why I'm doing this for, I'll be happy, even though I'll be persecuted, but I'll be happy. I'll know that I missed out on this opportunity because of my belief. That in itself, God will give us joy. Because God is fair. Like the Bible tells us, God is faithful. He will not, you know, He will not push you beyond your limit. And God will help you in circumstances. God's grace will help you to be able to bear with this, for these consequences, basically. And the rewards, obviously, if it's not here on earth, will be definitely up in heaven. That's guaranteed. But God will reward us in earth as well by actually knowing that we're faithful to Him you know. We'll have peace inside that we're doing the right thing. No matter what happens, I'm doing the right thing by God. I'm pleasing God. God is happy with me. That in itself gives us a feeling of comfort and joy, knowing that God is happy with me. That's priceless. That's priceless. My clear conscience, that's priceless. Okay? Being to sleep at night knowing that I haven't done anything wrong. Here.
Thanks, Abuna. I think that brings us to the end of the episode. And we'd like to thank all our viewers for joining us here today as well. If you'd like to listen to this episode again, you can download the Upper Room Media app where these videos are being streamed. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below, or you can email us at lighthouse@gmail.com. But once again, thank you for tuning in, and until next time, good night and God bless.